Hello, everyone. My name is Jacob Williams here with Dhananjay Talwar. We are the directors of Threshold Education. Once again, welcome back to our series of videos on the Oxbridge application process. Today, we're giving you an overview of the entire process, how to get into Oxford or Cambridge. We are meeting on Zoom due to the pandemic. Of course, Oxford and Cambridge are moving their teaching online as well. So everything these days is happening virtually. We're not in our usual office, but I hope you will benefit from this discussion nonetheless.
Yeah, absolutely. So without further ado, should we crack on? So the first question is, when should you apply?
Good question, yes. So the applications for Oxford and Cambridge are done earlier than other universities in the UK. The deadline is the 15th of October in the year before the year where you intend to start. So if you're applying to start next year in autumn 2021, you need to apply by the 15th of October this autumn.
Right. And how logistically do you apply?
All the applications for Oxford and Cambridge are exactly the same as other universities in the UK in that they're done through the same application system called UCAS, the Universities and Colleges Admission System. So you go to their website, ucas.com, you fill out the form, and you'll then get references from your teachers, and the form will eventually be submitted. It includes things like your grades, your predicted grades, you write a personal statement, and you send that off online, and it goes straight to the university.
Okay. And what long-term preparation can you do?
There's a few things you can do. So what both universities are looking for is evidence that you have gone beyond the school curriculum, that you have a passion for, interest in, skills in the subject that are beyond what they've taught you at school. So as early as you can, a year and a half or so in advance, if possible, start reading around the subject outside the school curriculum. Some people even read first year books from the universities for their subject. You can just read general works that relate to your subject to build up that interest. And extracurricular activities, if they relate to your subject, are really great as well. Relevant work experience, for example, is very helpful. And try to develop those things. Speak to teachers, for example, speak to anyone you know who may have a background in that subject. They may be able to give you advice and stimulate your intellectual interest.
Sure. What else do you have to do before applying?
So you have to you don't have to, but you can choose a college. So both Oxford and Cambridge are divided into between 30 and 40 separate colleges, which to some degree handle their own admissions process. So if you want, you can choose one of these individual colleges to apply to. And you might base your decision on things like the accommodation, the building, the culture, reputation, particular academic staff, even, say, the food. And your application is then sent directly to that college. Alternatively, you can submit what's called an open application, which goes directly to the university centrally, and they will then assign you to a college. Both of those are valid, but I'd probably recommend choosing a college. It can make a big difference to your experience at the university. Try and visit and have a look around if possible. You will also, for some subjects, particularly at Cambridge, have to submit a piece of written work, an essay, and that will be done through the UCAS process. And then for Cambridge, they also have a supplementary statement. It's like an additional small personal statement explaining why you want to study there in particular. You should fill that out as well. And that is pretty much everything.
Sure. So how can you maximize your success in the entrance exams?
Yes, so the entrance exams depend very much on the subject. Nearly all subjects have entrance exams, and you should prepare well in advance. So start to familiarize yourself with what the particular entrance exam for your chosen subject involves. So research this. They're on the Oxford and Cambridge websites. Find out what the exam papers are like, how long you will have, what kind of questions come up, etc. Try to improve your general skills in those areas. I mean, for example, I applied to study PPE, philosophy, politics, and economics. I read some books on philosophical logic, which were quite helpful with the thinking skills assessment that we had to do about critical thinking. Things like that are useful. And then as you get closer to the time, say 6 months in advance, start practicing past papers. Generally, you'll need to get a score between 70 and 85% to have a really good chance of getting an interview. So try to practice the papers in time conditions eventually until you're able to get that sort of score.
Right. And how should you prepare for the interviews?
So to prepare for the interviews, to some extent depends on the subject, but in general, try to talk and think and read about your subject as much as you can. And talking is particularly important because it's all about your ability to actually have an intellectual conversation. The more practiced you are in doing that, the better. Try and develop opinions on some of the main issues in your subject, if it's a subject, not so much in the hard sciences maybe, but in other subjects. In a science subject, you can practice talking through problems and questions that come up in that subject. And and also just make sure you're aware of what it's going to involve. So you don't have to do anything weird on the day of the interview. Just try and be healthy, relaxed, and see it as an opportunity um, to show somebody what you can do.
Right. And then what should you expect or do in the interview itself?
So the interviews are designed to assess whether you would be suited, whether they want to teach you really, in their particular method, the tutorial or supervision system, which is just one or two students meeting with the professor. So they will just ask you some fairly deep or sometimes kind of weird academic questions about your subject. For instance, in economics, for the interview, I was asked, why do they put Braille on drive-through ATMs? And we had to come up with something. So
Yeah.
be prepared for odd-sounding questions, but remember they're not trying to catch you out. It's important to show you're working. So if you don't know the answer, that's fine. Just tell them what you're thinking. Tell them you're getting somewhere, that you're thinking of something along those lines. Explain why you don't know. So analyze the question, break it down. Don't be afraid to question the question. Maybe it makes an assumption, or maybe you need to clarify it. That's absolutely fine too. You're trying to show them that you're thinking. And also be prepared that they might criticize your answers. They may respond to your answers and even trash your answers to try and show that you're wrong. And that's fine too. It doesn't mean that you're doing something wrong. Just take that on the chin, respond to what they've said, defend your view if you can, and if you can't, you may want to change your view and explain why.
Sure. So how do they actually make their decision?
So after the interview, and you will usually have done at least two interviews. So at Cambridge, there will be a general interview where they ask you regular interview questions, which are relatively easy to prepare for. Things like based on your personal statement or why do you want to study here. There'll also be an academic interview, and then at Oxford, they're both academic. So these will just be two different interviews with different academic staff. And all of the interviewers you've seen will give you a score out of 100. Now, they combine that with other factors like your entrance exam score, your A-level grades, GCSE grades, etc. I mean, predicted grades for A-level, of course. And they will essentially let in the people with the highest overall scores across all of these different dimensions. They don't reveal the scores to you, so you can't really know that. But they try and be fair. So at Oxford in particular, they pool candidates. That means if a candidate is on the boundary, maybe does very well, but there's not enough places at their college, they'll send them to another college and they have another interview and another chance.
Yeah. Okay. And what should you do if you don't succeed?
Well, firstly, don't let it get you down. There are lots of other great universities in the UK and elsewhere. Oxford and Cambridge, despite their reputations, are not necessarily the absolute best university for every single subject. So don't treat it too badly. And they're looking for something quite particular. It's not necessarily just who is the smartest, the most intelligent. It doesn't mean you're not intelligent, because they're looking for people who particularly benefit from that conversational, discursive style of teaching. That's supervision, tutorial system, that particular way. So don't overthink it, don't worry, don't overanalyze it, and keep moving forward. Keep looking to the future and be optimistic.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us today. And if you have any other questions, you can comment on this video. Please don't forget to subscribe here and check out the video description for ways to communicate with us. And you can send us any other questions that you may have. Thank you very much.
Tell me one more time now. Without an education.